country. So let's have it with Matt Schlapp. He's the chairman of the American Conservative Union and a staunch supporter of Kavanaugh's. Matt, I'm just curious first, and I want to ask Jessica Valenti the same question later. What did Thursday's hearing feel like for you personally as a viewer?
In full disclosure, Brett and Ashley Kavanaugh are good friends of ours. I served with him my entire time that I served with President George W. Bush in the White House. I know him well, and I know his character, and I know that this is not consistent with the man. I felt, to ping off the conversation you just had with Jeff and your other guest, I felt like I was watching my country slip. We dropped a few more notches. I think we've dropped too many notches, and I don't want to know.
Whose fault is that?
There's so much fault to go around. I can't. I blame desperately in this situation Democrats on that hearing, Democrat staffers, Democrat members of that committee who were willing to do almost anything to smear him. And I look at these polls that are coming out of West Virginia and Missouri. It is backfiring. It's backfiring even with women. Women in West Virginia, by a 30-point margin, want to see Brett Kavanaugh confirmed now after the hearing. More women in Missouri.
You're bringing up that state because of Manchin. I understand why. But
yeah, but look at Missouri, Brian, let me just say this. In Missouri, more women now will vote for McCaskill's opponent after this hearing. This is having big impacts in red states and blue states, but you got to also look at the impact in red states.
Yeah, I agree with you. I wonder your impression of the media's coverage of this. I think you wrote in a column on Friday that the press has been irresponsible. And I was wondering if you could tell us in what specific ways you've seen media malpractice.
Brian, it's happening every moment of the day. I think this show is covering this issue responsibly. I've watched every minute of your show so far. But I do believe that there is a presumption of innocence for anybody who makes these charges, and there's a presumption of guilt for anybody who is smeared by false charges. And I think that's very unfortunate. I think for the press, they need to understand, for media generally, they need to understand it's true the nation is divided. Most of you live in either New York or Washington, like I do. The neighbors around me, I'm sure, would agree that Brett Kavanaugh should not be on the Supreme Court. When I talk to Americans in the red states or any other place besides this corridor or Hollywood, when you talk to other Americans, they have a much different impression of what's going on with this Supreme Court nominee. A responsible media
fair, though, most
should
Americans
characterize.
Don't want him confirmed.
That's
to be
not
fair,
right.
Most Americans.
That's
in
not
the
right,
polls,
Brian. That's
okay,
not right.
Go ahead.
Brian, that's not right. I just looked at a poll walking in here where 53% of the American people favor Judge Kavanaugh. You can't pick one poll and make it seem like that is where the American people are. Don't do that. Politics looks at least all the polls, but you should say that the American people are split on this. Don't say the American people oppose them, because that's when people say you don't have credibility.
I agree with you that Americans are split on this. Unfortunately, very, very split in ways that are almost frightening. That it seems like we can't even talk to each other about this stuff anymore. If you dare to suggest that Brett Kavanaugh's behavior in high school shouldn't ruin the rest of his life, you're branded a rape apologist. If you dare suggest on the other side that his temperament makes him unfit for the Supreme Court, then you're branded a Democratic hitman.
So where do we go? So we are where we are. It is what it is. What do we do as a country? I think we do have to have institutions like the FBI and like the Senate Judiciary Committee that we can put our faith in and we can trust. Unfortunately, the FBI, for a lot of us who supported Donald Trump, has been sullied by their own actions. Unfortunately, the staff on the Democratic side decided to hold on to a letter for 6 weeks and never tell Dr. Ford that she could have done this confidentially because they wanted those theatrics.
Look,
these are huge mistakes.
You've litigated that on CNN in recent days. I don't want to go there. What I do want to focus on is the dishonesty at the hearing, because many fact checkers have concluded that Kavanaugh was dishonest at the hearing, that he said things that were misleading.
You can't do that. You can't do that. What fact checkers?
Let me show you an example.
They're funded by left-wing donors.
Okay, all right, and that's not true. Let's see. Here's what he said about drinking at the hearing on Thursday. Watch.
I liked beer. I still like beer. But I did not drink beer to the point of blacking out.
Now, I do believe he probably blacked out in college. Lots of college people, kids black out. Here is what one of his college friends said to Chris Cuomo.
There had to be a number of nights where he does not remember. In fact, I was witness to the night that he got tapped into that fraternity and he was stumbling drunk in a ridiculous costume, saying really dumb things. And I can almost guarantee that there's no way that he remembers that night.
If Kavanaugh lied on Thursday, does that make him a fit Supreme Court justice?
Look, I think it's a very serious thing to give false testimony to the Senate, and I wouldn't blame senators for voting against him if they thought he did that flagrantly. But let's look at what you're talking about. I watched that interview with Chris Cuomo with another former classmate as well. That woman said, I think he drank too much, but I didn't see any inappropriate sexual behavior. Blacking out is a very specific question when you can't remember anything that happened. He is the only person, Brian, who can answer that question. How dare anyone say that they can get into the innermost part of his soul and tell him when he blacked out and when he didn't? This is how it gets so absurd.
I understand this is complicated, but I mean, do you really believe the Devil's Triangle was a drinking game? I mean, do you really believe those definitions? I'm
going to come across as an idiot. I have never heard of Devil's Triangle before. I still don't know what it is. I don't know. I assume it's a drinking game, but I don't know what it is. And I think it has nothing to do. I could care less whether or not Supreme Court justices guzzled too much beer. I think we are in a ridiculous place. We should be talking about his legal jurisprudence. How has he been as a public official? How has he comported himself with the 6 FBI background checks over 25 years?
He does have to parse language. He does have to split hairs. He does have to determine whether someone's telling the truth or the whole truth. This is his job. So the idea that he wasn't precise enough, that he was saying things that were misleading on Thursday, can you see why that's concerning to a big chunk of the country?
Yes. Yeah, this gets back to the question of we all have to make the decision on what people saw. And what I am saying is that it's a big mistake for the press and for editorial pages and for reporters and their Twitter feeds, which I follow all of them, to seemingly take a side with their coverage. And don't quote fact checkers when those fact checkers have been against Kavanaugh from the very beginning, or they're funded by the left. This is why we used to love going to media places who had great reputation, because I knew just 25 years ago when I'd watch TV or read the paper, I knew there were places I could go to get the left and the right and then to hear what the facts were. That has been destroyed by the watching habits of the American people. And this is why you deserve great praise for having me on your show. Thank you.
I know that I don't.
But I don't fit your demographic. But it's important that people hear.
Sure, you do.
On your
of course,
show,
you fit my demographic. But I do want to ask you about something you tweeted since you brought up Twitter.
It's important that the people hear on your show what is actually happening in these red states as well.
Red states and blue states. You tweeted the other day about 2 conservative voters in a number of red states saying, look at this photo, and then you listed a bunch of states. Because these senators were all minorities, people called you out and said this was racist.
They sure did.
What were you thinking? What were you doing?
I never thought about race when I saw that photo. I mean, Democrats deserve great credit for the fact that they've done a better job electing diverse people than Republicans have. Republicans need to do better and also electing women. But the fact is that 2 of those people are running for president, whether you like it or not. It's not a question of their race. They are leading the Democratic Party. Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, and the senator from Hawaii, Hirono, she's been the voice of this anti-Kavanaugh movement. I can't help what race and gender and everything else they are. All I can do is say they are leading the show. I think the picture would have been much better. I didn't create that picture. It was retweeted. If Dianne Feinstein had been in it as well. I don't care what her religion is or her gender is. I think the activities by her and her staff are repugnant, and I think they're making America more divided, not more united.
All right, Matt, thank you so much.